Hey Mompreneur, are you feeling overwhelmed by content creation? I totally get it. You have a million other things to do, and somehow your kids always know the best time to interrupt you is right when you start doing work. And by best time, I mean worst time. That's why I made the 1 month of Conversation Starters content calendar. It tells you exactly what to post so you can ditch the scramble and get back to what matters most: your little womb gremlins and your business. More time for you, more engagement for your business. Get your free 1 month of Conversation Starters content calendar today at sociallyyours.biz/content calendar.
You know that feeling where you're just juggling a million things at once? You're trying to grow your business while keeping up with the chaos of family life. You are definitely not alone. We've all been there. We all know that struggle super, super well. It's a constant tug of war between building our dreams while also being there for our loving families. But what if I told you that there's a way to scale your business without sacrificing those moments with your kids? In today's episode of Mompreneur Mastery, I get to talk to Sierra, who is a business scaling coach that helps coaches sign more dream clients and make more money in less time by focusing on productivity and team building and scaling strategies. She's also a wife and a mom of 2 little boys and runs her business while being home with them full time. So she definitely knows this struggle, and she has some really amazing insights and actionable tips that you can try out for your own business. So this is not an episode you are going to want to miss. Welcome to the Mompreneur Mastery Podcast, where we share actionable Instagram strategies that fit into a busy mom schedule so that you can get more engagement, more leads, and more sales in less time. I'm Sydney O'Brien, an Instagram strategist who started my business with 3 kids under 5 and found a way to do it without sacrificing quality time with my family and only working 2 hours a day. I love helping other mom business owners find that seemingly impossible mom work-life balance instead of spending too much time creating content that isn't getting them the results they want. If you're an overwhelmed but very ambitious business owner and you want to strategize the heck out of your Instagram account so that you can save time and make more sales, you're in the right place. So today I get to talk to Sierra Scacco. She helps mompreneurs scale their businesses. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into that work?
Yeah. So first of all, I have 2 kiddos myself. And so I started my business when my first was like 6 months old. And I actually started as a copywriter, and I immediately just threw myself right into it and got overwhelmed very, very quickly. And eventually led to me burning out. I had to take a full break from copywriting and reset. And it was during that time that I realized, I have to learn how to make this business a lot more effective, because I was working with clients, but I also felt like I needed to do more. I needed to get on more platforms. I needed to be able to sign even more clients. I needed to create a website and a podcast and all the things all at once. And when I got to that phase of burnout, I was like, okay, this isn't sustainable. I need to figure out what is sustainable and crafted my own way, approaching scaling, especially as a mompreneur. And when I did that, I started talking with some people who I was friends with who also had their own businesses, and they were coming into the same problems. We'd all started about the same time. They were feeling that pressure, and I started to teach them as well. And that kind of just led me into finding even more people who needed this help. So that's what got me here.
That's amazing because, yeah, I feel like everyone I talk to is in a very similar boat where it's just constant overwhelm with all the other things you're trying to do. And the typical business advice just isn't super mom schedule friendly. It's very much for people with a lot more time and probably sometimes have teams working with them. And a lot of times it's just us. It's like a solo operation.
Right, exactly. And there are other, even when we see moms who have their businesses, it's they seem like they're doing everything all at once. And they're oh, I'm making the 10K months and I have, a podcast and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all the things. And it makes us kind of feel like we're less than because we can't do all the things. But like you said, they have teams, they have systems, they have referrals, they have automations, they have all these different little things that especially if you're a little bit newer in the space, or you're not quite to the point where you're thinking about scaling but haven't quite hit that limit yet, we don't have those resources at our disposal yet. So you have to rethink how you work.
Yeah, for sure. I think a big thing for me was learning how to use automations so I don't have to show up live like nearly as much because yeah, we don't have the time for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there are a ton of like easier or like cheaper automations. Like people think automations like, oh, I have to spend all this money on a funnel director, on a funnel design, or I have to get into all the different platforms. But like you can start small and just do things like scheduling your posts. Like that's a little quick automation right there that saves you so much time.
So much time and there are a lot more free things for these than you would think. Like you can use a lot of scheduling tools are free for just like one account. And then one I use a lot is Zapier. There's a free option for that as well. And yeah, saves me a ton of time for a lot of different tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what made you switch from copywriting? Was it just the overwhelm?
Yeah, it was,
Really?
part of it was that feeling of, I had hit my own point of burnout and I had this skill set that I could now teach to people. And the other part of it was I actually have a teaching degree and I always like wanted like it was in English. So I was like, okay, like the for me the path was like, okay, like I have an English degree, I'll start writing. But what I failed to like realize that I missed that like teaching part of things. I missed the helping people get to those realizations on their own and make the moves on their own rather than doing a done for you service, which I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because I really loved doing copywriting, but I missed the teaching aspect as well. And so I think that's what also ultimately led me to coaching as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's really interesting you say that. I think you're like the fourth or fifth person I've interviewed that is like a former teacher
Oh, no
and
way.
now a coach. There's like a definite trend there, and I love to see it. I think you're also probably the second or third person that was specifically an English teacher, which is really
Really?
funny. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Um,
something like it's just those those skills that, I think when we go into teaching, the reason like we have that skill set, we like to work with people, we like to help people. And in before like online business, that was just the thing you did, I guess. Like there wasn't really like a whole lot of other ways you could do that. And now this has like opened up a whole new world of like how can you reuse your skills? And that's another part of, really learning to scale is how can I best utilize my skills? How can I focus on the things that I'm really good at instead of trying to do everything that everyone else says I should be doing because that's what they're good at. Doesn't mean that it's not something that's helpful, but really honing in on your strengths. And then later on, when you do have the ability to bring on a team or outsource things, then you can outsource those tasks that are really helpful for your business, but that you're not great at.
hmm Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And now, when you say scaling, what exactly does that mean in case people aren't aware?
Yeah. So I like to look at, so you have growth and scaling. So your growth stage is where you might be kind of newer. You could have been in business for a little bit of time, but essentially you're creating that foundation. You're building up your client roster. You're building out your offer suite. Essentially, like you're probably in like one or two offers at that point, but you are kind of creating this foundation. And then when it's time to scale, that's when you have now built out, like I like to call it, it's like if you think like the foundation of a house, you have to create like the wide space for it. I'm like using my hands. I know that no one can see this, but you have to create like that wide foundation and then you can start to scale up. So then you can reach out to like on more platforms. You can hire a team to handle additional tasks. You can create additional offers or passive income streams if you've primarily done like done for yous or coaching, and you can start getting into courses and memberships and products, like things that are a little bit more passive. And essentially now you are increasing your reach up rather than building out your foundation. Does that make sense?
That makes a ton of sense. And I really like the way you explain that because I feel like I see a lot of people use the word scaling like on Instagram and social media and stuff, but it's not like the best place to kind of dig deep into what that actually means because it's so limited and people's attention spans are so short. But the way you just explained it was like perfect and makes so much sense. Like having
Yeah.
that strong foundation and then expanding.
Right. It's one of those buzzwords that everyone likes to throw out and like, okay, like let's start scaling, but like, what does it mean? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like what is
entails?
that? Yeah.
Right. When am I ready?
Yeah, exactly. So what would you tell someone who wanted to know if they were ready to scale?
So the things that I like to look for are, first of all, you have consistent, either like consistent clients or consistent income coming in, like some sort of proof that this is working for you. So in that way, when you go to scale up, when you go to increase your reach, you can use that as backing to like show like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I did it for this person. So having that consistency is going to be really important. The other thing to look for is that your time is now very limited. So we only have so many hours in a day. And especially if you are doing done for you services or coaching or something that is literally time based, like you have to spend hours on calls, you have to spend hours writing or creating. So you're going to run out of time eventually. There's only going to be so many clients that you can take on, so many projects that you can do at once. So the way when you get to that point, you're essentially putting a limit on yourself. And that's where scaling can come into play as well. That's when you know, okay, it's time to start figuring out a different way to approach my business, a different way to do things. So I'm not limited by the hours that I have each day.
That personally resonates a lot because I reached that point where I was like, I have these done for you clients. It's honestly not my favorite work. So now I'm working on like a membership so I can do more of the teaching and helping people, but without that huge time restriction because it is just such a time suck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like getting in front of, like, how can you get in front of even more people without spending even more time? You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah, that's such a big thing. I feel like especially for mompreneurs, I know I mentioned this several times, but I just cannot stress enough how important it is for us to be able to save time.
Right. Well, and especially because we usually go into business because we want more time with our families. We want
Hmm.
to be home with our kids. We want to be able to take a couple hours each day and like go take our kids to the park or do whatever we want with them. And once we get into business, there's like that little phase of like hustle, right? Like we get into it, we're so excited, we want to do all the things. And I think a little bit of hustle is necessary as long as you are very productive about it, as long as you are hustling with purpose. But when you get to that point of basically you're trying to overwork yourself and then you're moving more almost into like a full-time or a part-time position where like your hours are very like structured. If you were to like work outside the house, like you can't really just call off days because you feel like you're so stuck in your business, and that's not what we want to do. Like if we are in a phase of scaling, we want to simplify that whole process for ourselves so we do feel like we have the time to spend with our kids, to take off time for library story time, to if a kid's sick, like not feel like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to get everything done? Because we have those simple structures in place.
Hmm. Yeah. That is one of the huge benefits for me, like being able to support my family with the business, but also being able to support them like there in person. My kids are very, 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 very high energy. If we don't get outside for at least a few hours every day, they will never sleep. It's nuts. So being able to take like the time away from work and reduce my workload down to like an hour or two a day is what keeps everyone moving.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard, especially as someone I know for me, like I am an overachiever through and through. Like I want to succeed
Mhm.
and I want to do everything I can to succeed. And so it can be hard to even limit, like even though you know that you want time for your kids, it's hard to like separate that desire to like make your business move quicker and the desire to be with your kids. And so another part is just setting those boundaries, right? And setting them as early on as you can. That's another thing that usually when people are ready to scale, they've already pushed their boundaries like a couple times, like trying to take on more.
Mhm.
And that's a good sign if you're starting to push those boundaries, like, oh, like I can work an extra hour because I have to take on another client. Like I can do that. If you're starting to push those boundaries, that's another good sign that maybe it's time to start thinking about rethinking how your business runs and scaling.
Yeah, again, just really, really hits home. Definitely been there. It's especially, I think, important for, how there are like different stages in parenting. Like we can go a few weeks, like seasons, I guess, more than stages, but we can go like a few weeks where everyone plays together super well. And then there's like a couple weeks where it's just like constant chaos and they need like much more hands-on attention. And I feel like scaling and like having things set up to work for you on the back end would be especially helpful for that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, for example, so here where I live in Nevada and it is blazing hot in the summer. And I need to be able to shift my whole work schedule, the way I do things, so that way in the mornings we can get outside, we can play, we can, do things outside of the house when it's cool. And then that way I can shift to doing all of my work in the afternoons or in the evenings. Whereas in the winter, or like we're just coming out of this, like it was really cold, it's bitter cold. I didn't want to be outside at 9 a.m. And so it's like learning how to shift your business around your life rather than shifting your life around your business.
Hmm. Yeah, that is such a great way of putting it because yeah, I will tell people like I do this because it supports my life, but the minute it's the other way around, I'm done. I can't anymore.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So is there a way that people can set up these systems without taking time away from their kids? Like, is it a long, complicated process?
It can actually, it seems scary to do, but it's actually really easy as long as you are willing to take some time testing out different systems and different things. You can easily figure out what works for you. And like one of the things that I use and that I have my clients try to implement, especially if they're moms, is flexible routines. And that's like a very simple system that when you can implement, like it's a way to structure your time and create focused blocks of work time. So that way, when you are working, you are being a lot more purposeful about what you're doing. And you're able to fit these tasks, these daily tasks into little groups of time. So that way you can kind of move them around your day and allow them to be flexible around your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I have to have like a little bit of structure like that. So I don't just sit and like scroll on social media and like do nothing when I'm trying to work. Like I have to have like a little bit of a plan, but if I do it too structured, it usually doesn't pan out because like if I'm like, okay, 12 o'clock every day, I'm gonna do this, but I'm like, oh no, the kids have an appointment, or like, oh no, they need help with like something going on over here. Like there's always something where the super structured thing doesn't always work out. But I feel like having a flexible schedule with like the bit of structure and boundaries so you can stay on point would be immensely helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. Like I am a very type A person. Like I need to have the structure in the organization. And when my first son was born and I was starting the business, I tried to time block, and nothing against time blocking. Like it works really well for some people. But for me, I was the type of person who I would fill every single block with something. And then, of course, like literally sometimes as early as 7 a.m., like my kid would wake up at 6, and so it would throw off my whole day. And all of those little blocks got messed up, and it would be really frustrating and overwhelming to me. And that's why I had to create, like, at first, I was just like, hey, I'm just doing everything flexibly. I'm just going to just, whatever, I'm going to be careless, and I'm going to, maybe not careless, but I'm going to like just let things happen as they happen, totally against how I am as a person. And that backfired horribly. And I was like, okay, there needs to be like a balance, right? Like there needs to be something in between where I can have the structure, but still allow it to be flexible. And that's where these like flexible routines, maybe there's a professional term for them. I don't know. That's what I call them. Came in, and I started to just create these chunks, like I said, chunks of like 20 to 30-minute increments, because that's about as much time as I had before. Like I could set I mean, when he was little, I probably started doing these around like when he was about 1 year old. And then like again, once I had my second, I had to like reshift how I did again. But 20 to 30-minute increments, 'cause that's about as long as I could. Like either my kid could watch a TV show, or I could sit him next to me and he would like color or play Play-Doh or things. And it really just depends on how your kids are. If they have like smaller attention spans, sometimes mine do. And so I just have to, once again, be a little bit more flexible. But then I can look at my day instead of planning out my whole week in advance and having all of these boxes filled. I can look at my day that morning and say, okay, I have an appointment, right? Or someone texted me last night and they want to do a play date today. So instead of having it all planned out and now I have to go figure out how I'm going to maneuver it and fit my work in, I know, okay, I have these 4 or 5 30-minute blocks. I could do one before breakfast. I can fit two in after lunch, and then we'll go on our play date, and I can come back home and do another 30-minute block, and just kind of letting it flow the way that your life flows.
That is genius, honestly. I need to do more of that in my life.
It, like I said, it takes a little bit of structuring. And one thing that I always teach is like you need to be curious with yourself. You need to be willing to try out different things. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Just go back and try something else. There's always going to be a solution. You just have to test out a couple different things until you find what works. And so maybe it is flexible routines. Maybe it's creating those blocks. Maybe it's, you don't have set blocks, but you have a very, like, you understand exactly what those tasks are that you need to be doing every day. And so you have a checklist and you just go bam, bam, bam. These are the things I'm going to do. That way, when you sit down for work, you're not like confused about what you should be working on or sitting there trying to figure out where to start. Like it takes some time to really brainstorm, get creative, curious. But when you realize that time management, that setting yourself up for success, especially when it comes time to scale, you're already booked yourself out, you're very overwhelmed as it is. When you realize that this whole experience is very personalized, it can fit you. You don't have to go find a time management system that someone else says, oh, is the perfect system. It's going to make your whole life easier. Like realizing that it's very personalized makes a huge difference in what you're able to accomplish in your business.
That makes a ton of sense. And yeah, I just keep thinking like the personalization piece, like my listeners are all mompreneurs. So they're already like kind of going against the grain and like working at home probably with their kids and doing that because it works for them and their family. So of course, like these smaller aspects of how their business works should also be personalized to them and finding what works for them.
Yeah, exactly. And something that I talk about a lot is I don't have childcare. Like, I mean, I'm holding my kid, I'm rocking as we're recording this episode. I don't have anyone who can watch my kids, and they're not quite old enough where like I can let them play on their own, like in the other room. And so I have to figure out what's going to work for me in this season of life. And sometimes that means waiting until my husband gets home so I can get a couple hours of uninterrupted work time done. Sometimes it means recording episodes of podcasts while I rock my kid and keep him quiet, or using nap time. Like it's going to be different for every person, and it's going to shift during every season of your life. And like there's not going to be a set take steps A, B, and C to take your business to the next level, to scale and hit these big months. It has to be personalized to the time that you have, your strengths, and what you are able to accomplish today.
Yeah, that it like hits the nail right on the head. When my kids were a little younger, they're 3, 5, and 6 right now. So they can go a little while like playing on their own. It also really helps that like my office is like right off of the playroom. But when they couldn't be like left to their own devices, it was like working during nap time or like after they go to bed. I would sit in their rooms while they were falling asleep, like making little Canva graphics on my phone, trying to like put the light on my phone all the way down so it didn't wake them up. Or like one day a week, my husband would make dinner and I would go to the library and get work done there. It is just finding what works and being very flexible because it changes for sure.
Exactly. And that experience is so unique to you because even as far as to like the space in your home, like you said, the playroom is right off your office. Some people like are going to have a completely different layout, so they can't do that. Or some people are going to be like, yeah, my computer is in the same room where my kids play. So like I can kind of just, keep them in this corner. I'm in this corner. It works. Like every single aspect is so personalized. And that's what makes how you structure your time and how you scale so unique.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be different like for parents whose kids are like school aged and go to school versus parents who like have young kids or like homeschool kids, all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is very important to know because I feel like a lot of the stuff we see for like the advice that in like social media marketing is like do it like X, Y, and Z way. Take these 1, 2, 3 steps and you'll get there. But it's never that simple.
Right. And there's a lot of good advice out there, right? And it's important not to get so stuck in trying to take everyone's advice and make it fit in your life, but instead recognizing a good idea when you see one and then saying, okay, like, how could I make this work in my life? Do I have the time to start? I mean, maybe from like a social media point, do I have the time to start posting 3 times a day and showing up on my stories every single hour? just because someone said that was a good idea. Maybe I don't have that time, but could I just work on being consistent, right? Could I just post every single day? Because I know I can do that. I can post, I can show up and post every day. I can't do 3 times a day, but the principle is still there. So learning how to separate the principles of what people are doing that's making them succeed and the actual actions that they're doing, that's going to be the biggest difference in making it personalized to you.
Yeah, I talk with my clients about that a lot because a lot of the advice for like Instagram is like, oh, post 3 times a day. And like, no one has time. Literally, no mom business owner has the time.
Exactly.
It's unreasonable. Like it might work for them, but no.
Right. But there's other ways to make it work. And it's figuring out, what's going to work for you, finding that balance.
For sure. There's more than one way to get from point A to point B.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for mom business owners that have limited time, how can they still have a big impact and reach more people?
Yeah. So it's kind of like how we were talking about before, figuring out what is going to specifically work for you. And I like to teach my clients 4 aspects that you can then take and like personalize to your space that you're in, the experience that you are having, the season of life you're in. And all of these 4 secrets, I'll call them, are the things that will allow you to reach more people, make a bigger impact, and scale your business without necessarily adding more time onto your plate. So I actually have a free training that goes over these 4 secrets I would love to share with your audience. It's called the 4 Secrets to Success. Or sorry, it's called Scale to Success, not the 4 Secrets. It has 4 secrets in it.
Perfect. And I'll put the link for that in the show notes. So everyone make sure you grab that because that sounds amazing. I'm going to get it for myself. Well, thank you so much for being here. I love getting to talk to you, and you've definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I could be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So I know I'm going to be
Thank you
doing
so
more
much for
flexible
listening to
routines and
Mompreneur
remembering
Mastery,
that
simple
these strategies
Instagram
are all
strategy for
super
busy moms.
personable
If you were
to
listening
your
to this
family, your
episode and found
resources.
yourself nodding
So
along,
definitely
I would
keep
love
that
it
in mind.
if you would
There's
find
no
me on
one size
Instagram
fits
and
all
send me a
approach
message telling me
to
your biggest takeaway.
entrepreneurship, and I feel like
My
especially
handle
as
is at
mompreneurs, we know that.
socially.yours.
But with the right mindset
strategist.
and practical
don't forget
tips
to
like the
grab
one
your
Sierra
free
gave us,
1
we
month of
can
Conversation
conquer
Starters
anything.
content
I'm
calendar
super
so
sure
that
of
you know
it.
exactly
So
what to
if you are
post to
ready
get
to
more
take your
comments
business
without
to that
spending
next level,
hours
be sure to
brainstorming
download Sierra's
Instagram
guide. I'm
post
going to link it
ideas.
right in the show
You
notes
can
for
get
you.
it
It is
at
packed with
socialyours.biz
really incredible insights and actionable steps to help you
or head
thrive
to the link
both
in
in
the
your
show notes.
business and in your family life because you get to save so much time. So check out the link in the show notes. And thanks for listening to another episode of Mompreneur Mastery. Does it take you 3 cups of coffee, 20 minutes scrolling Instagram for inspiration, and a couple Google searches just to know what to post? And then after all that, you still get crickets in the comment section and have trouble turning your Instagram followers into paying clients? You are not alone, and that is exactly why I created my Post with Purpose membership. Inside Post with Purpose, you get simple Instagram strategy to grow and connect with your audience so that you can convert them into clients. You get done-for-you post templates to save you time. You also get monthly Instagram trainings to know how to use the app itself about things like reading insights and story and DM strategies with scripts. Plus, personalized support from me so that you can get your results quickly. Are you finally ready to see a return on all that time you've invested into your Instagram? Well, I have a super special deal just for my Mompreneur Mastery listeners. You can get a $7 trial of Post with Purpose in the show notes. Can't wait to see you inside the membership.